The name Porsche has been synonymous with luxury sports car design for nearly a century. But there is another name tied to the legendary automaker that was deliberately erased from automotive history. This is the story of Adolf Rosenberger, Porsche's Jewish co-founder, and how the Nazis drove him out of the company he helped create in 1930s Germany. The two people most often associated with Porsche's origin story are car designer and company namesake Ferdinand Porsche, and Anton Pieck, a lawyer and Ferdinand's son-in-law. Adolf Rosenberger was the third co-founder.
Adolf Rosenberger was a race car driver, a very famous one in Germany. Adolf Rosenberger drove for Mercedes-Benz. He got to know Ferdinand Porsche because Ferdinand Porsche designed the race cars.
Rosenberger's motorsport career ended abruptly in 1926 after a serious accident at the Berlin Grand Prix which killed 3 spectators.
He moved back to his hometown outside of Stuttgart and started investing initially in real estate, and then teamed up with Ferdinand Porsche and Anton Pieck. And Adolf Rosenberger served as the financial backer. Ferdinand Porsche would spend prolifically on his designs, and the Porsche car design firm was always on the verge of bankruptcy. And Adolf Rosenberger was the man who raised the capital from family and friends.
On January 30th, 1933, the day Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, Rosenberger quit his job, having grown tired of spending his own money and raising funds from others, only to see it be burned through. But things would soon change for the Porsche firm. After turning down a job offer from, of all people, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, Porsche signed a contract in June of 1934 with the Nazi government to develop an inexpensive people's car, or a Volkswagen, to transport the citizens of the Reich. The car Porsche eventually designed was the Volkswagen Beetle. In just 13 months, Porsche's firm went from near bankruptcy to profitability from the Volkswagen contract, and a race car design that Porsche and Rosenberger developed. Company profits in 1935 neared the equivalent of $1.5 million today. To understand what happened next to Rosenberger, it helps to explain the concept of Aryanizing assets in Nazi Germany. While Porsche's cars were in demand, the company had a problem that many companies in Nazi Germany faced. The Nazi regime wanted to Aryanize businesses by removing any Jewish owners. To achieve this goal of Aryanization, many companies began buying out Jewish-owned assets, often for less than their actual value, or through outright theft. Since Adolf Rosenberger had a 10% stake in Porsche, the family had to buy him out.
The 10% stake that he has in the Porsche company is bought out at the nominal value at 3,000 Reichsmark, which was the nominal value of his seed capital of the Porsche company in December 1930. Even though profits of the Porsche car design firm have greatly increased in the years since, they are no longer on the verge of bankruptcy, Adolf Rosenberger ends up selling his shares to his co-founders far below the market value. His 10% stake is transferred to Ferry Porsche, who is the only son of Ferdinand Porsche and his wife.
Rosenberger later said that while he did not directly accuse Porsche and Pieck of anti-Semitism, they, quote, used my membership as a Jew to get rid of me cheaply. 10 days before the Nuremberg race laws were enacted in September of 1935, Rosenberger was arrested by the Gestapo and charged with race defilement for having dated a non-Jewish woman. After spending almost 3 weeks in prison, Rosenberger was transferred to a concentration camp on September 23, 1935. He endured 4 days of beatings and was then suddenly released. Baron Hans von Weider-Malberg, Rosenberger's successor at Porsche, had intervened with the Gestapo and lobbied for his freedom. But neither Ferdinand Porsche nor Anton Pieck did anything to secure their co-founders' release.
Ferdinand Porsche is hobnobbing at the Spanish Grand Prix in Bilbao at the time, and even though Rosenberger, through his lawyer, pleads with Ferdinand Porsche to do something to save his life, he doesn't do anything.
Rosenberger left Germany and moved to Paris in November of 1935. Even after his imprisonment by the Nazis, he continued to work as a foreign representative for Porsche, licensing patents in France, England, and the US. In June of 1938, Rosenberger received a letter that Porsche was no longer able to maintain its contract with him due to, quote, higher authority. Rosenberger wrote to Anton Pieck suggesting two ways to part amicably: a settlement worth some $240,000 in today's dollars, which would help him start over in America, or to grant Rosenberger Porsche's American patent license.
Anton Pieck responds coldly and says, "We see no legal basis to give you anything." And a month later, the Gestapo initiates the renunciation of Adolf Rosenberg's German citizenship and leaves to the United States.
Rosenberger settled in Los Angeles under a new name, Alan Robert. After the war, Rosenberger wanted restitution as a founding shareholder in Porsche, with the same stake that was acquired from him during Aryanization. The case went to court, and Pieck proposed a settlement, $144,000 in today's dollars, plus a car, either a luxury version of the Volkswagen Beetle or a Porsche 356. The settlement was accepted by Rosenberger's attorney, and Rosenberger chose the Beetle. But the story did not end there.
There's a part of him that still wants to be part of the Porsche company, despite everything they did to him. So even after the settlement, and even after the sudden deaths of both Ferdinand Porsche and Anton Pieck, he goes back to Ferry Porsche and asks if he can do something for the Porsche company in America.
However, nothing came of the meeting, and in December of 1967, Rosenberger died of a heart attack in Los Angeles. So why is Rosenberger's story not widely known today? For one thing, Ferry Porsche himself played a big part in erasing the Jewish co-founder from the company's history. Almost a decade after Rosenberger's death, Ferry published his first autobiography titled We at Porsche. In it, he twisted the truth around what happened to Rosenberger, as well as other German Jews who were forced to sell their businesses and flee the Nazis. Ferry, who was also a former SS officer, peppered his account with anti-Semitic stereotypes and claimed it was the Porsche family who had saved Rosenberger from the concentration camp.
The perverse irony ends up that a former SS officer ends up introducing the Porsche car in America, and not the persecuted Jewish co-founder of Porsche who has immigrated to America. That is yet another incredible tragedy of the tale of Adolf Rosenberger's life.
In Porsche's second autobiography, published in the 1980s, Ferry changed his story, removing the anti-Semitism from the narrative and reducing the story of Rosenberger to just 2 paragraphs. But he continued to deny Aryanization took place, and Porsche's corporate position has also largely been quiet on this part of the company's history.
And today you have the very Porsche Foundation, which is sponsoring professorship in corporate history, even though the Porsche family has never spoken about Ferry Porsche's anti-Semitic statements, about Ferry Porsche's voluntary application to the SS, and Ferry Porsche populating the Porsche company in the 1950s and 60s as CEO with former high-ranking SS officers. So what is happening is that there is a global foundation today in the name of Ferry Porsche, which perversely is pretending to be engaged in history, but nothing could be farther from the truth.
It was not until 2019 when the German public finally got to learn about Adolf Rosenberger's founding role at Porsche. A public television documentary chronicled his saga as a company co-founder, the struggles with Aryanization, his fight for recognition, and how he was written out of Porsche's company history. Rosenberger and other stories of Aryanization are further explored in David de Jong's new book, Nazi Billionaires: The Dark History of Germany's Wealthiest Dynasties.
I wanted to tell this story because what I found so shocking living in Germany is how transparent some of the world's most important companies, like Porsche and BMW, are about the history of the people who founded them or who saved them from bankruptcy. And how they are not owning up to that part of history. I think you can learn from history by being transparent about the good thing and the bad things people did. If you only celebrate people's business successes but not show their war crimes or affiliations during the Nazi era, you don't learn anything from history, you just whitewash it.